Hello, my name is Alistair Pride and I'm the Global Course Leader for the Postgraduate Branding and Communications course that you're doing as part of your MSc degree programme. Welcome. In our first video, I'm going to introduce the course to you, talk about the teaching team, and give you some information about the assessment that we do as part of the course. There are two pieces of coursework, and I'm sure you'll be pleased to know no exam. Then in the second part of the video, I'm going to talk about branding and communications. I'm going to introduce you to some of the basic concepts and frameworks you'll need to know as part of this course. We'll talk a little bit about brand definitions and the difference between branding and simple products. And then I'll introduce you to a few different tools that you can use to understand branding better. Things that talk about brand personality, brand identity, and of course, the strategic brand management process. Now, there are a couple of formal learning outcomes for this course that you need to be aware of. You can see these on the slide. We're going to teach you how to appraise the importance of branding and marketing communications theories. And we're going to teach you about basic concepts and tools that you need to know. Once you're complete, you'll be able to construct your own branding strategy, as well as create an integrated marketing communications plan. You'll also be able to manage branding and communications tasks and use real life examples to apply these theories, concepts, tools, and practices. You'll also need to demonstrate advanced communication skills. Now, one of the reasons that I enjoy teaching this course so much is I think it's a fantastic opportunity to dip your toe in the water of branding and communications. There might be those of you that plan a career in marketing, and maybe some of you that actually want to specialize in branding. And this course is great because we give you the chance to invent your own brand and present it via a piece of group work and a video presentation. Your individual assessment will concentrate on a written report, but also give you the chance to do that integrated marketing communications campaign by way of a 30-second television advert that you will write and produce yourself. I'm really excited about the course, and I hope you are too. As far as the teaching team is concerned, I'm the global course leader and I'm based in Edinburgh. So for those of you also based in Edinburgh, you'll be seeing me for the lectures and the tutorials, as well as these videos. If you're lucky enough to be based in Dubai, Dr. Nikita will be looking after you there. I really want to deliver an engaging classroom experience for you. I want to stress that these videos are not intended to replace the requirement to turn up in class. Classroom discussion is the richest form of learning. But I'd like to advocate the use of video, the use of interactive teaching in the classroom by way of tutorials afterwards, and I want to stay connected. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's where all these videos are posted. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that would be great too. I occasionally post content there that's of use both to this course and to your wider studies. Use the QR codes on the screen in front of you now to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to connect with me via LinkedIn. This is the course schedule. Now, over the course of the next 12 weeks, it might be necessary to move some of these classes around. I can guarantee that all the topics that feature on the screen now will be covered in the next 12 weeks, but occasionally, for operational reasons, we need to move the schedule. That might happen locally or globally. Occasionally, things like Eid and Ramadan in Dubai dictate that the times of classes have to change. So this is very much a fluid schedule, but it does cover all the topics that will be addressed. In addition to the lectures and tutorials, I am posting videos regularly. These are not intended, as I've already said, to replace a lecture, so please don't rely on them. But to reward attendance in class, I will also post bonus content on my YouTube channel, which is why I want you to subscribe. I'll also post a QR code in class to direct you to this bonus material. Now, as far as the schedule is concerned, at the time of making this video, we didn't know when the classes are scheduled in Dubai, but I can tell you that in Edinburgh, lectures are happening on Tuesdays and tutorials are happening on Thursdays. I'll try and post video content at least 1 week in advance, and the classes run for lectures weeks 1 to 12, and you'll receive 11 lectures. Tutorials run from weeks 3 to 11, and you'll get 8 of those. Of course, there are no classes at all in week 6. That's your flexible learning week. And I dare say you'll be wanting to concentrate on the coursework then. And in addition to that, there will be around 10 of these videos. I hope you can use them all as a way of learning that suits your style the best, whether it's classroom, participation, discussion in tutorials, or simply watching these videos. The tutorials start in week 3, and they're intended to provide an opportunity to go into greater detail. We'll rely more heavily on discussion and practical workshop tasks in tutorials, and they'll be central to developing the idea for coursework that you're going to work on in your groups. It's important to sign up to the tutorials in the groups that you want to do the coursework with. Let's talk about the course assessment. As I've already said, there are 2 assignments, coursework 1, which is a group work exercise, and coursework 2, which is an individual exercise. The group exercise is formative and provides you with 30% of your final grade. The second piece of coursework is an individual piece, and that's a summative piece of assessment, and that provides you with 70% of your grade. The good news is, as I've already mentioned, there's no exam. So if you hate exams, you've come to the right place. Now, let's talk about the individual bits of coursework. Coursework 1 is a group exercise. So in groups, you're to devise and present a branding and communication strategy for a brand new brand. Okay, it's of your own design. If you're in the UK, i.e. Edinburgh campus, it's got to work for UK customers. If you're in Dubai, similar, it's got to work for Dubai a Dubai audience. The brand can be a product or service. It can be a commercial brand, it could be a charity, it could be a public service, but most importantly, it has to be original and realistic. Now, what do I mean by realistic? What I mean by that is, don't sell me a magic carpet, okay? We know you're not product engineers, you're not designers. You don't have to tell me how the product will function, how it will work, how it will be manufactured, but it has to be at least believable. So, as I said, no flying carpets, no time machines. It has to be believable. Also, the name cannot be registered or currently be in existence anywhere in any country. You're going to present this idea as a video presentation, and it can be pre-recorded. It has to be pre-recorded. It's not live, and it needs to be between 8 and 10 minutes in length, and it will be submitted digitally via Canvas. Now, if you've never done something like this before, don't worry. We're going to cover it in depth, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to make the best possible video. I believe that by presenting course material in video myself is a good way of leading by example. And I'm going to share some of the tips and tricks I use to create these videos to help you with your coursework. The specific requirements for the first piece of coursework are as follows. You must include the name, the brand, history, background, and provide some secondary market research to support the brand idea. Now, it's completely fictitious, so you can only be limited by your imagination. You can tell us anything you want, staying within the realms of believability, of course, and speak to the brand characteristics, the positioning, the target market audience, the identity, and the rationale, using all of the concepts and tools that we're going to discuss in class. My advice is to concentrate on the points of parity and points of difference. Don't worry about this terminology, we'll get into that in due course. But you need to justify the reason for the product existing. Why is there a need for it? Also, we're going to talk about the brand symbolism. Why does it appeal? How does it resonate with customers? And again, you'll rely heavily on the tools and the concepts that you learn throughout the course. Staying with coursework 1, we'll also talk about the advertising strategy and the marketing communications channels. You can download the slides for this in a separate part of Canvas. I'll signpost that to you in a Canvas announcement, and read in more detail about how to construct both of these components. Let's talk about the individual coursework assignment now. Coursework 2. The requirements for this are as follows. It's a 2,500 word essay that discusses the brand characteristics and positioning, brand symbolism, and the brand growth strategy. How are you going to develop equity, for example? Now, this is the summative piece of assessment. So you're going to use the feedback that you get from the formative piece, that group exercise, and you're going to incorporate that feedback into your individual essay. In addition to that, you're going to need to talk about the integrated marketing communications strategy and talk about communications objectives and the message content and so on and so forth. Now, integral to that is going to be the 30-second advert. Now, this builds on the idea from the group work, but you can interpret it any way you want. It's a great opportunity to be as creative as you want to be. And again, don't worry, in tutorials, we'll look at examples of what students have done in the past and how they've done it. We don't expect anybody to become a Hollywood director and produce anything that you would expect to see in cinemas. However, we do encourage the use of all the creative tools that you have at your disposal, including AI. And it's amazing what can be produced using a laptop, a phone, and the creative use of online digital tools that you have at your disposal. Again, it is a lot of work, but I want it to be a lot of fun. Traditionally, students on this course enjoy doing this, and I want you to as well. You're only limited by your imagination, and it's a great opportunity to explore a field that you might not ever have experienced before. Let's talk about the advertisement that you're going to create. A bit like the group work exercise, it needs to be pre-recorded, filmed, and saved as a YouTube link. Whilst it's based on a fictional brand, it must be compliant with advertising standards, whichever of those apply in the country you're in, so the UK or Dubai. And it cannot contravene any of the rules concerning things like alcohol, medical products, or violate any other code of practice. If it does, then marks will be deducted. So be responsible in what you produce and the content that you publish. I want to just offer at this stage a word of reassurance. Specialist filming equipment is not required. I'm going to teach you how to do the entire advert using nothing more than the equipment you probably already have in your pocket or in your hand right now. It's only 30 seconds, and you'll be surprised how much content you can cram into that 30 seconds. But making sure that the advert is believable and engaging is half the task. So sometimes more is less, is what I'm trying to say. And you can use whatever format. You can use a documentary style, you can use graphics, you can use illustration. We'll get into message appeal in due course and talk about how we sell the message. So again, great opportunity to be as creative as you want. I'm going to anticipate a question before it's asked. An important reminder for Coursework 1 is you come up with the advert idea, but you do not make the advert in Coursework 1. This is a group work exercise only. The only thing you need to submit is your video presentation. You'll discuss your idea, but you create the ad individually and submit it as part of Coursework 2. What that means is if there's 5 or 6 people in the group, we're going to get 5 or 6 interpretations of the same advert idea. Once the group has come up with the idea, it's your choice to interpret it any way you want. And that's a lot of fun. Please respect all the other details of coursework submission, including the deadline. And you're going to hear this from me in class. We are talking about a digital submission. We're talking about large file sizes. I want to stress that things can go wrong. Things will go wrong. So don't wait until the last minute of the submission deadline to submit. You're given a fair degree of flexibility in the length of your submission, between 8 and 10 minutes. Make good use of that time. You can say more in 10 minutes than you can in 8. So think wisely about how you address each part of the coursework requirements. But anything that goes over 10 minutes will not be marked. The single biggest weakness of any coursework that I mark is the editing. So rehearse what you want to say, try not to do it in one take. And again, you'll see on the schedule, there is a lecture and at least one workshop dedicated to producing this coursework. I'll share some tips with you for coursework 1 now. We're going to come back to it, so you'll hear all of this again from me. You need to record the presentation in PowerPoint, but there are opportunities to enhance that using tools like Cameo and B-roll footage. And again, we'll cover that. But depending on your operating system, you're going to edit and save that in a different way. Generally speaking, Mac users use iMovie and Windows users use Premiere or something else. Whatever you use, I would recommend creating a slide deck. And again, the differences between Mac users and Windows users are Keynote or PowerPoint. There should be no requirement to buy or subscribe to software you don't already have. And once you've created it, you're saving it and uploading it to YouTube. And what's submitted is the YouTube link. That's it, nothing else. Here's a quick reminder on coursework 2. It's 2 things. It's a 2,500 word written report submitted via Canvas, and it's a 30-second television advert submitted via YouTube, and you include the YouTube link in your written report. That's it. Simple as that. Same rules apply. Don't wait till the deadline to submit it. Remember, it's a digital submission. Upload times can vary. Bandwidths can vary. The server can get uploaded. So do yourself a favor and try and submit it at least a few hours before the deadline. Just one other quick reminder for all coursework, there's a Turnitin submission window on Canvas that you need to respect. And we absolutely do not accept submissions in paper form or via email. If it's not submitted on Canvas, it's not submitted. Late submissions are tolerated for 1 week from the submission deadline, and will carry a 30% penalty unless mitigating circumstances are applied for and granted. And beyond 1 week, you cannot submit, and it will count as a non-submission, and your grade will be 0. But I'm sure no one's going to be in that situation, so let's not think of these things. Before we start with the actual content on branding and communications, let's just talk also about material that you've got at your disposal to use for your research as part of your coursework. You're encouraged to use journal articles. For the written report, at least, you're expected to reference a minimum of 10 high-ranked journals, and you can find the ABS list here at this link on screen now. There's also some rules to follow. I'm sure you've done this elsewhere in your studies, but citation and referencing are an important part of the marking criteria. So make sure you're familiar with the Harvard system, look at the journal articles, look at the books, look at in-text citations, and understand how these citations and references vary from one to another. And sometimes it's appropriate to use one rather than another form. Again, a couple of links to explain the Harvard system in more detail. You've also got a textbook. Now, I imagine yours looks like this because it's the latest version. Mine's slightly older, but it's the same basic book, and it's the Keller, Lane, and Swaminathan version of Strategic Brand Management. I think we're up to the 5th edition now. I would encourage you to at least read this one book. And here are some additional recommended textbooks if you want to expand your reading. In addition to that, there's a load of recommended journals that you can use, and here's a non-exhaustive list. And let's start talking about branding and communications. For the second part of this video, we're going to talk about the actual academic content now. I'm sure you're pleased to be doing some learning. Let's start at the very beginning. What is a brand? Well, it's got its origins in the North Germanic language, and I'm sure you'll recognize this image from cowboy movies that you watched as a youngster. And a brand was originally a mark that was burned into the flesh of an animal, and it's used to signify ownership. This belongs to me. This is my property. And here we are, 2,000 years later, and it's now a symbol of a product that's for sale. So, as is so often the case in language, the meaning has developed, the meaning has completely changed. And as you would expect, different authors offer different definitions. Here are 5 dating back to the 1960s, and it shows the evolution of the definition of brand. And I think probably the most obvious place to start is actually the latest definition. This is the one that appears in the book from Keller, 2008. But this is incorporating so many more ideas into the concept of brand. It's no longer just a product. And to understand brands, we have to start with the products that they represent. So we first have to define and understand product. So remember, you're going to be doing this. You're inventing your own brand. So to start, we start with the product. What is a product? A product is anything that's for sale. It could be a physical good, like a box of cereal. It could be a service that's provided, like a financial service provided by a bank. It could be a shop. It could be a retail outlet. It could be a professional service, a personal service provided by an individual. It could even be a place. Regional marketing programs are some of the most inspiring marketing programs that we've seen in recent years. Or it could even be an idea, like a social cause. It's anything that can be sold and packaged. That's the product. And there are 5 levels of product. Okay, so once you've defined your product, know that there are 5 levels to that product. The first is a core benefit, so the fundamental thing that it does. Then we move to a generic product, so that's a run of the mill commoditized product, which is only doing or performing the basic core benefits. Then we have an expected product level. Now might be on the basis of the consumer, or it might be on the basis of an expanded product that the company offers, a luxury version, a sporty version, a more expensive version. Then there's the augmented level. So this separates the product from the competition and it's the basis of competition. So this is the augmentation that outperforms the competitive product. And then you have the potential product level. And that's what takes the brand to the next level. So beyond the provision of near competitors. This is what gives us the non-iron shirt, the luxury car brand. More on that later. The new and improved version, the high speed version, the different colors, the different options. Maybe it's exclusive content, but that's what separates it. That's what sets it apart. And that's the top level of meaning for a product. So, how do we go from there to brands? Well, the brand is more than the product, it has additional elements to it. So, over and above that basic product and those 5 levels of product meaning, we also need to consider logo, symbol, package design, or other characteristics. And that's why we get branded products. So instead of the box of cereal, we've got Kellogg's cornflakes. Instead of an airline ticket, we've got Delta Airlines. We've got multiple different streaming services, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music. We've got your favorite retailer, your favorite actor, your favorite destination. And these all transcend the basic levels of meaning for a product and become a brand. These brands offer added values, such as emotional benefits or other deeper connections with the brand. They unify people, they give them a shared sense of ownership, and they can infer other benefits as well, such as inclusion in social groups or other benefits that people derive through the consumption of the brand itself. Why is it important? Why does branding matter? Well, first and foremost, if we think back to the marks burned into the cow's skin, it's a trademark. It infers ownership. We made this. Okay, this is ours. The next level is a trust mark. Because we made it, you can trust it. Okay? Think of any brand mark on your favorite type of product. Maybe you've got a favorite type of computer you use, a favorite type of sneaker that you wear. What's the brand mark? How can you identify it before you can identify anything else? It's familiar, it infers trust, it infers something you can rely on. It might even be an actual trust mark, something that guarantees safety or reliability or infers that it's been tested against a standard that you can rely on. And finally, it's a mark of preference. It looks like this, therefore, it's my preferred brand. Think of anything that you like to buy. It could be your Adidas sneaker, it could be your Starbucks coffee, it could be your Mercedes car. Everything has its own identity and sets it apart from a competitive brand. And at a basic level, that's why branding is important. So how does branding work? Well, I'm going to introduce you to 3 simple tools that talk about brand meaning, brand personality, and brand identity. Look at the slide. Brands can be used to trigger associations in the minds of customers. These associations are based on utilitarian functional issues. So go back to that basic level of product. What does the product do for you? But also the emotions and feelings towards a brand. And we'll talk about this in the next 12 weeks. All the communication strategies that a brand develops to infer these meanings, these emotions, ultimately converts into equity. It's the reason you would buy that brand more than another one. Then we talk about personality. And there's a brilliant model by an academic called Jennifer Aker, who developed the brand personality scale. We're going to talk about it in a minute. And this is really important because it reflects the main human characteristics that she found that people associate with brands. And that's ultimately the essence of why brands work. Because brands emulate the personality of people. Marketers are often derided for saying things like, yes, but if this brand were a person, what would its personality be like? Now, you can mock that because it does sound faintly ridiculous. But actually, in essence, it's true. We identify with brands. These brands resonate with us because they mimic the personality traits of our favorite people. And we'll talk about that in due course. And then finally, we're going to talk about brand identity. And the Kapferer model, the brand identity prism, illustrates what this brand stands for and how it wants to project itself and how those projections are received by the consumer. There's an external focus and an internal focus to the brand prism. Like products, there are also different levels to brands. At a basic level, you've got the main brand attribute. What attribute does the brand bring to mind? Okay. When you think of this type of soft drink, do you think of fun family times? When you think of this fast food restaurant, do you think of nutritional goodness? Unlikely if it's a fast food brand, but you know what I mean. If you think of a certain type of sneaker, does it talk about performance or is it mainly about leisure? Then the next level is benefit. What benefit do the customers associate with the product, with the brand? Okay, so what's important to them? Different brands bring different benefits, and it's ultimately up to the consumer to decide what benefit is most important to them. Then you've got values. How does the brand tie in with the customer's values? Now, this is easy to identify, easy to understand if you think about brands where the values are at the core of what it does. It might have some lofty purpose. It might be an environmentally friendly product, and that might be a value that you hold close to your heart, and that's why you would prefer it more than anything else. And then finally, and this happens at an almost subconscious level, what's the personality of the brand? We're going to talk about that next. What kind of person would this brand be if we could bring it to life? Because ultimately, that's what describes your relationship with the brand. And that's why you stick with it or you reject it in favor of something else. And now we come to this brand personality scale. Now, what Jennifer Aker did was she defined these dimensions of brand personality. And under the overall brand personality scale, we have 3 levels. We have factors, facets, and traits. And she identified the 5 most common factors that we would identify with any personality, be it a brand or a human, was based on sincerity, excitement, competence, sophistication, and ruggedness. You can see it on the slide here. And then underneath that, you have facets of those factors. So facets of sincerity, for example, are domesticity, honesty, wholesomeness, cheerfulness. Okay? And then within that, you have traits that further describe those facets. So within domesticity, you have how down to earth is it? How family oriented is it? Does it give you a small town feel? Authenticity, genuineness. And you can identify these factors, facets, and traits very easily because that's how you live, that's how you engage with the humans around you. Not everyone will apply to a brand. So it's not like you have to check every box. You just pick out the ones that resonate with that brand. Now, this is the good bit. Flip that around and imagine that you're managing the brand. You use a survey process to identify what people most associate with your brand in terms of personality. And then you design a communications campaign that speaks to those factors, facets, and traits. You reinforce those personality traits using the communications material. That's what resonates. That's what reinforces the brand appeal. So you now know what your advert looks like because you want to give it a cheerful, homespun feeling. So you already know the colors that you're going to use. You know the music that you're going to use. You're going to know the visual images, that lovely little house on the prairie with the white picket fence and red and white checkered tablecloth with mum's home cooked apple pie. Yeah. Similarly, you might be talking about a very competent, reliable product. You're going to use cold lighting. You're going to use steel. You're going to use high-tech sounds and techno music. The script almost writes itself. When you understand the personality of a brand, you understand how to communicate and how to engage with your customer. And finally, we look at Capfra's brand identity prism. And as I said in the opening section to this, there are two focuses here. There's the external focus and there's the internal focus. And you think of it as a prism, a six-sided prism. And there are three dimensions to the external focus and three dimensions to the internal focus. The external focus is coming from the brand itself. What is its physicality? What relationship is it trying to have with you? And how does the brand reflect back to its ideal customer? And this is what's reflected in the adverts. And then on the receiving side, the internal point of view from the customer, what's its personality? What's its culture? What values does it represent? And perhaps most importantly of all, what is the customer's self-image? What does ownership or consumption of this brand mean for the customer? What benefit will they derive? Will it be inclusion in a group? Will it be social status? Will it be convenience? What do they get out of it? I'm going to talk you through the strategic brand management process. Now, it's a four-stage process. We start with identifying and developing the brand plan. And then we move on to the implementation of the marketing program. And then we look at how we're measuring the performance of those things. And then we look at growing the brand, developing equity, and hopefully ensuring that it's sustainable. Very quickly, let's go through these one by one. First of all, identifying and developing brand plans. This process starts with a clear understanding of what the brand is to represent and how it should be positioned with respect to the competitors. What are the points of difference? What are the points of parity? Where's the competitive advantage? Secondly, we design, implement the brand marketing programs. Three factors to consider here: the brand elements. These are the physical parts, the name, the URL, the logo, the symbols, the characters, the packaging, everything that you can build, create, and make. You plan the marketing activities. So that goes back to your fundamental understanding of marketing, your product, price, promotion, place, strategy. And then your secondary associations. Who speaks for your product? Who's your spokesperson? What's your sponsorship? Do you partner with sporting events? Do you sell only online? Do you work with a retailer? Third, you need to measure it. You need to measure and interpret brand performance. You need to perform audits to do that. You need to use brand tracking studies, and you need some form of brand equity management system. Now, that's about as much detail as we need to go into for this course. But an equity measurement system is basically a research process to tell you how you're doing. Is it worth it? Are you spending your marketing budget wisely? And then finally, we need to ensure growth. Because if we don't grow, we won't be around in the long term. We need to maintain and expand brand equity. That's the value in the brand. That's the reason that customers choose your brand over anything else. It's basically money in the bank. And that's it. Thank you for watching this first video from our 12-week branding and communications course. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been helpful. If you've come along to class, by the time we get to this slide, there's going to be a QR code here, and it's going to point to some bonus content, okay? Some bonus material. And it's going to use a case study based on Mercedes, I'm sure you know that brand, to speak to this, the 4 levels of brand meaning. We're going to explore through a worked example the application of this framework. We're going to look at the attributes, the benefits, the values, and the personality of the Mercedes brand, and look at those traits. In the same way as Jennifer Aker did with her personality scale for brand, we're going to look at those things that resonate, like a personality of a brand. It's reliable, it's successful, it's upper class. But what things does the brand do to make these things come to life? Come along to the class, get the code for the bonus material, and you'll see for yourselves. In the meantime, thanks for watching.